John 13 and Luke 22, or we can stand up and dance to the drums next door. Let's see. We did have a word a few weeks ago that it was time to dance, so Amen. Don't get nervous. All the non-dancers were like, and all the dancers like, yeah. Just kind of tap your foot to it. We'll be out of here soon. That's what we're talking about this afternoon. Luke 22, 24 through 27. Let's go to John 13 first. I'm just really putting kind of a lid on what I talked about last week, and this idea of abolition. I believe God is calling us as a spiritual family to be a part of an abolition, to be a part of freeing people from religion, which is what I was just talking about for the last 20 minutes, is freedom from religion and condemnation, and to free so that people can come into deep friendship with God even in their weakness. And secondarily, there's a freedom from racism, there's a freedom from hate. You know, there's things that love sets you free from. I don't know what's going on with this. It keeps on doing, I'll switch. There's things that love sets you free from. Love casts out fear, right? So love is not just something that's like cuddly, like the Trolls. I watched the Trolls last night. They're just always happy and always nice. No, it's like the troll in that movie. None of you. How many of you have seen Trolls? All right, I'm talking to 5 people in this room. You're gonna get touched though. There's one that's like he's like a warrior troll, and he lives in a bunker. Yeah, underneath, because he's getting ready for the Bergens to come, and he's basically a doomsday prepper. And but eventually, at the end of the movie, he gets happy. It's better to be a warrior and happy. That's what love is. Love is both. Love is, yes, the fruit of the Spirit, and it's kind, it's gentle, it's patient, but it will also cut the head off of Goliath. And so love is confrontational sometimes. And so when we think about being in a place of love, we have to realize that there are things and tendencies within our own thinking and our own hearts that are going to be replaced. They're going to have to get kicked out. What I'm talking about with this issue of racism, I know in this room, it's not like a bunch of you go home and won't say hello to other colored people whenever they say hello to you. I know it's not that obvious. It's 2017. A lot of us are past that place of temptation of really some kind of cultural norm where we would hate publicly Indian people, black people, Hispanics, whatever it is. I'm speaking as a Caucasian person. Someone told me this past week that statisticians believe that by 2050, it's going to be hard to tell any nationality in the United States because we're all intermarrying. And so all of our kids, it is actually manifesting as a melting pot. No one will know what each other is. And it's great. It's wonderful. And I believe that there's these small things. Song of Solomon talks about where she's actually the beloved, it's the church, and she's crying out to her lover, and he speaks back to her and he says, "Listen, I want you to catch the little foxes that ruin the vineyard." Sometimes it's not a big issue in your life that is holding you back from explosive growth in God or from impacting other people. Sometimes it's something so small and subtle. You know, I've tried to be just really vulnerable last week, and I'm going to do it again this week. For me, this issue of racism is not something huge, like I want to lynch someone. The issue is subtle things in my upbringing. Now, my parents weren't racist, but in my culture, I went to private schools, lived in mostly white neighborhoods, and I heard dozens and dozens of times whenever, even stuff like with Clayton County, when it started having more African American people, there's something, I mean, even naturally, they call it white flight, where when black people move into a neighborhood and start to kind of dominate the home ownership in the neighborhood, where white people go, well, I guess it's time to get out. And we've hid behind this excuse of, that means if there's more black people, then there's a possibility of more gang activity because there's less white gangs than black gangs in this area. And yeah, that might be true, but I want to just maybe kick the door in for myself and go, well, maybe that may be true. But maybe he who is in me is greater who is in the world. And maybe there's a hint of generational racism that's hiding behind that thing that says, well, I guess it's time to move south. Definitely not moving to Clay County. I've heard that so many times. I've said that. I think that things that are called, the only reason that would feel innocent to me or to you is because we were raised where it was a cultural norm.
Right.
Have an African American person in your back seat when you say that to your husband or say that to your wife. Yeah.
Come on.
The tables turn completely. This isn't an issue, like I said last week, that's some kind of political thing. You know, you go, well, you've seen how there's these Black Lives Matter people who are, white lives matter too, and cops matter, and everybody matters. Everybody matters, guys. We get it, okay? We get it. Sanctity of life, I believe, I'm pro-life. I mean, everybody matters. But if we're not careful, we can get so political that we start becoming un-Christ-like. And here's what I mean. You go, well, I've seen it on Fox News, and that's not mainstream media. Mainstream media this and mainstream media that. Listen, Fox News is the highest rated media company out there. How in the world could you say it's not mainstream? Just because it agrees with you. Listen, they're mainstream. I don't know what Trump is, but he's something. And that's why neither one of them really liked him. Megyn Kelly quit, she moved. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. But we have to understand that if we get too political, we come into this place where we start sacrificing our truth and stop walking in love and start walking in rightness. Start walking in this feeling of elitism that, man, we know. And I see so much hate on social media all the time. And it masquerades as a political point of view. But it's actually hate. And it's actually ignorance, honestly. The same people that are calling Black Lives Matter some kind of ignorant group make definitive, broad stroke statements about other people and about what this generation, as if you have tallied everybody and gotten everybody's vote about what's right and wrong. There's a lot of pride that's all across the board coming from both sides. And what I want to challenge us as a spiritual family is to come to a place where we go, you know what? Why don't we stop arguing about who's right and who's the greatest and pick up a towel and start washing each other's feet? I don't want to hear your political opinion if you don't have a towel in your hand. I don't want to hear your opinion about someone else if you won't weep over them in prayer. We think this idea of it's said again and again, well, no, we got to speak the truth in love, brother. We got to speak the truth in love. What is love? What does that look like? We all of a sudden ascend to the hill of the Lord as if now we are everyone else's ordained critic. And now it is God's calling on my life to call everyone out on Facebook. This is my calling. Who I do not agree with, who says something ignorant, who says something that I don't agree with, which is the same thing as saying something ignorant. And we stand on our pedestal and call people out. It's like you're just guns blazing. It's like a video game, but it's real life. And this whole time, we're completely missing it. We think that Jesus did that. Well, Jesus called out the Pharisees. He called them whitewashed tombs, and that's why I got to call anybody that posts about Barack Obama this or that. Listen, first of all, those aren't the same things. Pharisees and Barack Obama supporters are not the same thing. It's different, guys. That's called a political spirit. Do you feel that, what I'm talking about? It's a political spirit. When we start labeling things as Christian and non-Christian, and the whole kingdom of God becomes some kind of political empire. There's this tension that we have to live in, where we have the right to vote and we have the right to express our opinion. But Jesus went up on a mountain before he rebukes the Pharisees and wept over Jerusalem. He's weeping and weeping and weeping. He said, "Oh, how I've longed to gather you together like a mother hen gathers her chicks." Here's what I want to challenge you to. Don't correct people that you won't weep over. when you have more critical opinions than you have real spiritual authority over, when you have more critical opinions of people than more people than you have spiritual authority over people, then you probably have a critical spirit. You sound more like the enemy than you sound like God. And you could be speaking the truth in hate. You could be speaking the truth in hate and thinking you're speaking the truth in love because you have a scripture for it. And what I'm telling you is I don't know exactly how to have a litmus test of whether or not I'm in love correcting people or not. It's not just what I say. It's not just if it's truth or not. I need to speak the truth in love. I think love serves and love gives. So I won't correct people I'm not willing to serve. And I won't correct people I'm not willing to promote and to treat as better than myself. I'm not saying that's what I do all the time. I'm saying that's the place that we have to go to. I see a lot of it in our spiritual family, even now. That there's a deep love that's been just rising in our hearts as a spiritual family. I've just watched it, and now I remember 6 or 7 years ago, it was just kind of the way it was when we started. People would go, when I come, I don't feel welcome. When I come, I don't feel loved. They would say that, and I would kind of roll my eyes at it and go, I mean, I love you, you know? Do you feel that? You know, and in my heart, I mean, and I would say that to them. But that's the way it would feel sometimes, and that's a real struggle of a lot of pastors, is that people come in and because of something in the congregation someone does and doesn't do, or that one, it's like a speed date, you know? It's like you don't really get to know people in a 2-hour, thing, and so it's frustrating because people think that you should be able to get to know everyone and get a temperature of the church just from Sunday morning. The Sunday morning is kind of like the shirt I'm wearing. It may be nice or not nice in your opinion, but it doesn't make up who I am. What makes up the church is what we do the other 166 hours of the week. And to get that, you're going to have to meet somebody and get into their home and get together with them. But I remember that tension of going, man, people feel unwanted here, unloved. And then God took us down this journey that I can't go into right now, but it's on our podcast. We have detailed the whole journey for 2 years about the love of God and the Father's heart and all these things. And it started to change us. And so that now, a lot of times I get messages about, man, I just feel the love. I feel the love. Yeah. And I'm like, that's amazing. And it's still not a great measurement because it's just Sunday morning still, but it does mean something. I see a lot of random things. I had somebody who's just become a part of our spiritual family who had to go to the ER this past week, called somebody that they haven't known for, it has to be, they came last summer, so less than a year, called somebody, who also works and things like that, and she came over to the house to keep the kids while they're at the ER just last spur of the moment. And I was on the phone, she's crying on the phone to me. She's like, I haven't felt this kind of family ever. And so, that's good to me. So I'm not preaching this as some kind of a rebuke that we haven't grown in love, but this is an issue that I want to challenge you with. This is challenging me, guys, because it's when things are culturally normal for a long time, to rock that boat, it will take you a minute to really see what I'm saying and to actually pick out and find those little foxes. Do I have racist tendencies? Am I more likely to say hey to a white person than I am to a guy standing outside of a gas station who might happen to be black? Will I smile at the white person but not smile at an African American or an Indian or a Hispanic? And if you're Indian, Hispanic, African American, whatever culture you're from, ask yourself the same question. I'm learning that there's actually reverse racism, and that there's, because of the hate, because of different things, all kinds of cultural problems, we end up kind of all having some type of stereotype or some type of judgmental thinking about another skin color. I'm just saying, what if we, this is real, guys, you really will experience this if you actually start taking thoughts captive and thinking about this. Wipe it all clean. What you think about another skin color. All the stereotypes, all the jokes, everything. Wipe it all clean. Start asking him what he thinks about people. And if you don't have something nice to think, don't think it. I don't care if you think it's funny. those are all it's all tiptoeing into the water of what we're talking about called racism. And it's the thing that leads us to hate. Set your mind on things above. John 13, here this sums it up. We're going to read several scriptures really quickly, and then I'm just going to close with these scriptures, and hopefully this will help us land. John 13, verse 1. Just before the Passover feast, Jesus knew that his time had come. The time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." "No," Peter said, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part in me." Then the Lord Simon Peter replied, "Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." I love Peter. He said, "Just give me a whole bath." Jesus answered, he's like, "Whoa, Peter. A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body's clean, and you're clean, but not every one of you." See, and he knew that Judas was going to betray him. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." Jesus is saying, he goes, "I'm the teacher. If there's ever been a person who was right and had the right to be right, it's Jesus. And he calls himself teacher, and they call him Lord. And so, of course, he's right. And so he has the right to be able to subjugate them and to make them feel like they don't know anything, because they really don't compared to him. But instead of doing that, that's what Jesus is saying. He actually puts down his right to be right, even though he is right, and washes their feet. And he goes, I don't just tell you the truth in love, speak the truth in love. I actually become your servant. And Peter, the goody two-shoes of the disciples, is like, "No way, you'll never wash my feet." He's very self-righteous, even though he's just the way he is, full of faith, and he speaks before he listens. He's ready, fire, aim. And I believe that this is the truth, or the example of Jesus. We're going to look at one more in Luke 22, that allows us to deal with this situation. Why are we talking about, why am I mainly talking about this issue of racism, white and black people, or Caucasian, African American, whatever way you feel more comfortable saying or thinking about it. Why am I focusing on that? One is because it's the biggest issue in our country as far as racism, because of our years of slavery. And two, it's because it's all over the media. One of the things that I think about whenever I'm preparing for a message, really the first thing actually is the Father was prompting me to do it. But one of the confirmations is that it's all over the media. It's everywhere. There's all kinds of arguing going on right now about this issue. And I want to answer, as a leader, I want to answer questions that people are asking. And I haven't heard or been involved in a lot of conversations that have been very constructive as far as dealing with all this information and all the marches and all the things that are going on, that actually was helpful and actually led me into feeling like, okay, this is love. This is truth. You might be waiting on some kind of political agenda or some kind of plan that I have after this series. I just plan on listening. I plan on talking to people who want to talk to me, and if I get a connection with someone that I want to talk to them, I plan on loving my neighbor and not treating people differently because they have a different skin color. Written on the Berlin Wall is that many small people doing many small things change the world. Sometimes we get the cart before the horse, and we're like, we're going to change everything. You can't change everything until people change. And as far as I'm concerned, the people that are changing are people who are in my spiritual family, in my sphere of influence. So I can say, this is what I'm dealing with in my heart. Maybe you should deal with it too, if it's there. And if someone who goes, I don't have any racist tendency, I just be careful not to knee-jerk to what I'm saying. And just write yourself off a blank check of, I'm perfect in this area. Because not too long ago, you probably in your line, in your generational line, had slaves. Not too long ago. I mean, we're talking about 500 years ago. I'm talking about 200 years ago. Less than 6 or 7 generations, maybe. I mean, Stephen just moved into a house that still has standing slave quarters in Jackson, Georgia. We're not talking about something a long time ago. And so our little tendencies of racism that seem innocent and seem funny or whatever it is, I think we need to put them on the altar and kill them. Because where those things came from is not something nice. And it's not something kind. And it's not something that's not a big deal. It's something that it stunted the growth of a whole skin color, a whole people group, where it wasn't until 50 years ago where they could actually go to college. We're not talking about something old. We're not talking about something that has already been dealt with. We're talking about something that maybe in the political sphere has been dealt with. But again, get the cart before the horse, and you end up with a political system that says everything is fine, there is no more racism, when the people are in turmoil, are going, oh yes, there is.
Sure. Right.
And as soon as something happens that triggers and confirms that belief, i.e. a cop shooting a kid, even if he was doing something wrong, it's not about the rightness of whether the cop should have defended himself or not. That's something that's going to be dealt with by the governmental system itself. But what is your position of your heart is going, why is there such a knee-jerk to that? Why isn't every time a white person's shot, people go, oh my God, white lives matter. He was a black cop and he shot. And why isn't there a freak out moment is because we don't have a generational line to actually come to that conclusion. We don't have that history that just 50 years ago, less than 50 years ago, there were riots in the streets, police brutality was real. And I love African American people, I love white people, I love police and non-police. I'm grateful for it. This is something that's deeper than all of those things, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying you don't have to be proud or you don't have to stand up for your military, police, whatever. That's fine. What I'm saying is that there's something deeper, that our response to that is go, man, maybe I have brothers and sisters around me in Christ who are African American who are actually hurting even if they don't know it. And that's what makes them easy to believe that something is hate, whether it is or whether it isn't. It's like an anticipation of it because we're not that far removed from the ending of it. Luke 22, I'm going to close with this scripture. We're going to pray. Does this make sense?
Yep.
Look at verse 24. A dispute arose among them as to which of them was considered to be greatest. Wonderful. Jesus said to them, the kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors, but you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the table? But I am among you as the one who serves. You are those who have stood by me in my trials, and I confer on you a kingdom, just as my Father conferred on me, so that you may eat and drink of my table in my kingdom and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So he just hit some, just with the 1-2. I would imagine it would be very confusing sometimes to be with Jesus and to hear what he's saying. Because they're arguing about who's going to be the greatest. First of all, if you ever have any condemnation about what you do in your day, at least you don't spend time in the morning, maybe you do on Facebook or something, but going, who's the greatest? Who's had the greatest day, who's got the greatest job, who looks the best, all those things. But they're having an open conversation after being with Jesus for a while. This is Luke 22. And having an open conversation about who's going to be the greatest. I've never had that conversation with my buddies. Like, who's the best in this room? It's like, what a Gaston conversation. Yeah. And Jesus just breaks through and goes, listen, I'm the greatest, actually. Forget about the God man that's in the room. Maybe they gave that to him and they were talking about really second greatest. But he goes, but I'm among you as the one who serves everybody. He's basically saying, maybe greatness isn't what you've thought of. Maybe God doesn't judge success based on what you think. Maybe it's not being right that makes you great. Maybe it's when, in spite of being right, in spite of being confused, in spite of being annoyed, Jesus is not thinking this or saying this, I'm saying it. I think the disciples could get very annoying. And unless Jesus had the fruit of the Spirit of patience really in operation, he would have gotten that. I mean, there's a few just kind of sharp remarks sometimes where like Peter speaks up when Jesus is transfigured and a cloud shows up and God says, "This is my son, listen to him." Like, hush, Peter, stop talking. Some of us, we need to learn that spiritual discipline of hush. Listen to God. Stop listening to yourself. We need to take up the position of wherever I'm expressing my opinion from, there's something I need to do first, and that's serve everybody. I don't want to correct you or argue with you unless I'm willing to serve you at the same time. I'm not saying that the debate isn't important. I'm just saying we have to have a position of love, a position who wants to of wanting to serve. So practically, what this looks like for us, even as a church, is just doing what I told you that I was going to do, or maybe you have other ideas. It's not about an event or making it something that you did one time. It's really a heart transformation. You look for opportunities to love just like you always have. There's a lot of other issues in our nation. There's sex slavery. It's actually still slavery that's actually still happening. There's I believe, a real oppression on women worldwide that's happening, that we've talked about a little bit. There's a lot of issues that are going on. The thing that addresses it all is love. Martin Luther King said love is the only thing that can conquer hate. We can't treat one hate as worse than another hate. It's all the enemy, it's all darkness, and it's all got to go. In that place of love, in the place of serving, there's going to be solutions politically that can come forth, that will not come forth. No one will even conceive of the idea unless someone's in a place of love. It's not just about correcting things and fixing something and doing something to education. It's about people who will get actually possessed by the Spirit of God enough to go, I know this looks foolish, me being Jesus serving these people, washing their feet. It looks crazy. It doesn't make any sense. But it's the place of love. It's where we give ourselves to each other, lay our lives down for our friends, where we say hey to people that we don't know and love people that don't love us. It looks like something. It has to be expressed. Love that's not expressed is not complete. And it has to be expressed. And so for us, all of our outreach we're doing in low-income housing areas. Our whole church, we're going to have an activation Sunday in April where our whole church will be in a low-income housing area in the city, giving out food and just feeding people and meeting new people. We've planted, I pastored a house church in a low-income housing housing projects here for over a year, and then they ended up all moving because a lot of that housing is transitional. They all moved. There's about 12 of them. One of them, their back was completely messed up. It got healed. A failed surgery. It got completely healed. The other one was addicted to painkillers. He got off the painkillers. He and his girlfriend were living together for 7 years. They got married in our church. And some of you guys remember then we did the ceremony on a Sunday morning. So amazing. And so that's where our roots are. I remember when we started in a house, we would do outreaches on Thursdays to a local housing project. just ministering to people, loving on people, serving our brothers, serving our neighbors. And our whole entire church, I'm not kidding, we only had about 20 people. Our whole church would be walking around pushing our babies in the housing project people. Someone heard that I was going to a housing project one time, and they said, isn't that dangerous? And I'm like, no, what dangerous is going into a white suburban neighborhood and trying to share your faith. If it wasn't for the grace of God and my patience with white people, my skin color might change. It's time to stop being so mean and elitist. I'm saying that as a white person in a white. Our neighborhood is mixed nationalities, but I'm joking, by the way. So all the white people think I can joke because I am. Okay, and that was a really heavy message, so I ended that on a light note. Let's stand. I want us to we're not going to belabor this issue. We'll address it from time to time, but